Greetings, I'm Alan West, President and CEO of the National Center for Policy Analysis. Our first question comes from William in Atmore, Alabama. What policy allows people coming into our country to qualify for everything, including jobs, while Americans are working hard and being fired? What policy needs to be changed to stop this action? Well, William, I want to tell you that no policy needs to be changed. We just need to have elected officials that uphold the laws that we have in our book. For instance, just last week we saw that there was an increase to 235,000 new jobless claims. That was up from 7,000 the previous week. We just need to get those 92, almost 93 million Americans that are out of work and have stopped looking for work back to working. The policies that we need to put into effect are the right type of tax and regulatory policies for our small businesses and for our corporations and businesses to return back to the United States of America so that we can have economic opportunity and growth. This is not about politics, which is one of the reasons why you see people here illegally are getting a lot of taxpayer-funded benefits. The second question is Dusty from Garland, Texas, who asks, Democrats are crushing American energy and business by a combination of green propaganda and choking regulations. How are Republicans going to crush their lies in the minds of our, this is your question, ignorant youth? This is one of the things that we have to do. And speaking as a father of two daughters, 22 and 18, we have to meet the young people where they are. That's on social media, just as we are right now. And on Facebook, Snapchat, all of these different means that they go to for their news sources and to exchange information. We have to be able to make this very relevant and pertinent to them, such as our young people who are graduating from college and they're not finding jobs and opportunities, and we have to talk to them about the high cost of gas and where we need to keep gas, how we need to be the #1 exporter of oil and natural gas, and we should not have embargoes on it. The big concern we have to talk to our young people about is government crony capitalism. You saw that with Solyndra, and we don't need the government believing that they can be a venture capitalist, nor can they be picking the winners and the losers in the private sector and the free market, especially when it comes to our energy security and our energy sector. So I think we need to have that open conversation with our young people. The next question comes from Jean in Durham, North Carolina. She wants to know, what are the plans of each presidential candidate to address the critical issues on electric grid security? Well, Jean, I have to tell you, I cannot speak for the respective presidential candidates, which I believe right now we're at 9, and probably by the end of the month of June we could go to 15 or 16. But recently, the National Center for Policy Analysis did an opinion ed piece on EMP, electronic magnetic pulse, and protecting and securing and hardening our grid so that we don't have any possibility of an attack. There have been some recent ground attacks against our grid systems out in California, and I believe also in Virginia, that weren't widely disseminated. So we have to start looking at the things that preclude anyone, especially Iran, to get a nuclear device and set it off in the atmosphere and crush our grid security. But I think that that's one of the questions that if you have a presidential candidate that comes anywhere near your community, you need to ask them about how would you protect our electric grids from any type of attack. Next question is John from York Spring, Pennsylvania, and he asks, why haven't we heard any updates on Bowe Bergdahl? Bowe Bergdahl is the Army sergeant that is being held at just down the road from us here in San Antonio, Texas. He deserted his post back in 2009. Charges have been preferred against him. For those of us that know the United States military, especially the Army, we very well knew that Bowe Bergdahl was a deserter. Anytime someone walks away from their combat duty station and post in a combat zone, leaving their weapon, leaving their helmet, their sensitive items such as their night vision devices, they're not just going out for a spring walk. But the thing is this, we're finally going to get to hear about the Article 32, which in the military is somewhat similar to a grand jury trial coming up the 9th of July. And then after that, if those charges are deemed to be sufficient to go forward with a general court-martial, that date will be set. And I would think sometime within the next 60 to 90 days afterwards, we should hear about Bowe Bergdahl's court-martial coming up down in San Antonio, Texas at Fort Sam Houston. But the bigger concern is with the 5 senior members of the Taliban that we released, and we were told that they were no longer any type of security threat. recently the administration made the decision in conjunction with Qatar to not allow their release to go back to Afghanistan, which after a year that was supposed to happen. Those 5 gentlemen should have never been released from Guantanamo. But we'll keep you up to date and informed about Bowe Bergdahl in that case. Our last question of the day comes from Kenneth in Athens, Michigan. Do any candidates have any solid plans as to how to solve our national debt problem, or are we just going to wait for the dollar to crash, hyperinflation, and as Doug Casey calls it, the Great Depression? One of the things you can do is follow us here at the National Center for Policy Analysis with our Financial Crisis Initiative, the FCI. You can go to our website, www.ncpa.org, because we are going to look at what were the causes of that 2008 financial crisis, and we want to make sure that we don't repeat those mistakes. But I can tell you that if you start to look at some of the things that are happening with the exorbitant amount of money that we're printing, with the fact that we're keeping interest rates at an artificially low percentage, less than 1%, we're going down that same path. James Rickards came and did an incredible presentation with us, and one of the things that concerns me is that the too big to fail, those banks are even getting bigger. So these candidates have to start looking at how do we get economic growth going back, how do we trim back on the expansive growth of the federal government so that we can stop these incredible debt that we see. And remember, the actual debt of this country, when you include the unfunded liabilities such as Medicare and Social Security, is closer to $90 trillion. So I would like to thank you all for your Ask the NCPA questions. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at NCPA. Thank you very much for your support.